Merry meet. How connected do you feel to the water element? Are you able to adapt and change with changing circumstances around you, or do you have trouble going with the flow? And are you feeling connected to your creative and sensual side, or do you feel creatively blocked? So, the water element is connected to our emotions, our intuition, dreams, healing, and of course, to the moon. And so, in tonight's episode, we are going to be talking all about the water element, including multiple ways that you can connect to the water to bring more flow and fluidity into your life. So, Merry Meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and I am here tonight talking all about the water element. Okay, so I have a lot to talk about, so we are just going to dive right in. All right, and if anybody's here with us live, you can leave questions and comments in the chat, and I will get to those at the end during the Q&A. All right, so the water element is associated with compassion, with hope, with dreams, with emotions, with change, with ebb and flow. So you think about the ebb and flow of the ocean, and that is the element of water, and that can also have that same energy within us. It's connected to our sensuality, connected to our unconscious, and also connected to our womb. And despite the fact that we think that the womb is something that's connected to women, right? Everyone, no matter their gender, has a womb space inside. This is our creative center. Now, the water element allows us to flow, to be fluid and changeable as things in our lives change. And it also connects us to the divine feminine and to the feminine energies within us. Again, like the womb, doesn't really have anything to do with our gender. It's just simply a type of energy that we have. So we want to draw in more of that receptive and feminine energy if we want to connect more to the divine feminine outside of us. The water element is the way that we can do this. So the majority of this episode is all about how do we connect to the water element. So let's dive in with a bunch of different ways. So by the time we're done with the episode, you will have some ways that you'll be able to connect, and hopefully you'll learn some new ones that you hadn't even thought of before. Okay, so the first one is pretty obvious. We can visit places where there is a prevalence of water already. So, like lakes, rivers, oceans, waterfalls, very good. So, these can be places where the water is moving, like in a waterfall, a fall, or a stream, or something like that. Or it can be a body of water, like a lake, where the water is moving somewhat, but not flowing as much as it would in a river. Now, of course, rain is also a way to connect with the water element, or any precipitation for that matter, though sometimes when we think about snow, we don't think as much about the water element, but it is frozen water, right? We can also connect to the water element in baths, in showers, in swimming pools, in hot tubs. And in fact, one great way to connect to the water element is through ritual baths or showers. And so we can make more of a ritual to this by bringing in herbs or stones or candles into the bathing area. We can do auric cleansing while we're in the shower. That would be another way to kind of move energy. And so this is such a good refreshing way to kind of wash off the negative energy from the body. So we go in the shower and we wash off the physical dirt, right? Or a grime or anything that's on the body. But here, just imagine the water just washing away any of the negativity that you may have picked up from the day. And if you are especially sensitive, like many of the people I know who follow me, this can be a very good cleansing technique for you. So that is working with water is just first idea is just simply go to a place where there's water or immerse yourself in water. Okay, so the next idea is to work with the sense of taste. So every element is connected to a sense, and the water element is most often thought of as connected to the sense of taste. The sense of taste is also connected to the sacral chakra, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The sacral chakra is the energy center that is also associated with water. So here you want to think about tastes that you like or you dislike, and really think about those tastes. Why do you like them? Why do you dislike them? When you eat your food, try eating more slowly and more mindfully so you can really explore the sensations in the throat, in the mouth, in the esophagus as the food goes down into your stomach. You'll even feel it there. And so many times we are very disconnected from the body in our day-to-day lives, and especially because there's a lot of disordered eating and eating disorders in society that many of us have picked up. It can make us disconnect when we're eating. And so this is a way to kind of bring us back into the body and to really explore the feelings there. That helps connect us to the water element. Now, the other thing that you can do, because I mentioned the sacral chakra, the sacral chakra is connected to the color orange. And we're going to talk about colors a bit later and how to work with color to work with the water element. But if you want to bring more orange food into your life, that will bring more of the sacral chakra into it'll kind of work with that to balance the energy of the sacral chakra. And then by extension, because that's connected to the water element, that will also help you connect to the water element. So things like oranges and like orange bell peppers, very good. And if you think about some of those foods too, they're very watery as it is, right? So you're already bringing in that water element. And so that's another thing to also mention is the idea of just water in general. So we talked about immersing ourselves in water, but what about drinking water? So do we drink enough water? And I think the vast majority of us probably don't. And so we really should be trying to consume about half of our body weight in ounces of water. So if you're someone who weighs 150 pounds, then you're going to be looking to drink 75 ounces of water a day. So that is like two of these like hydro flasks, a little bit more than two of these hydro flasks for your average person, which is a lot of water to people who aren't drinking very much. So I would just encourage you, if you don't like water, like I like to add things to water. So something that's helped me with my water consumption is adding tea bags, like mint tea or fruit tea, into the hydro flask. And then it's like a cold infusion, and then I feel like it tastes a lot better. Plus, you're getting the benefits of some of those herbs as well. Okay, so that is our second idea is really focusing on sensations of taste and then making sure that we get enough water. So just saying hi to those who are joining us. I know that there are people here, and I can't see anything. It shows that there's 0 viewers, there's 0 comments, there's 0 reactions, and I know that's not true. So I just keep trying. There, I refreshed it, and now I can see everybody. Okay, hi Amy and Misty and Melinda, Colleen and Cindy. All of you guys are here. Okay, thank God I could see the comments now. Okay. Um, okay, so let's move on to the third idea. And the third idea is about movement. And again, if you're here live, feel free to put questions in the chat comments, and I will answer those as we go. Okay, so movement, especially movements that are that help us flow. Okay, so let's kind of think about this. So movement that's associated with the water element isn't our really like powerful kinds of movements. This isn't like power yoga. This isn't running. This isn't weightlifting, right? We're looking for movements that are all about flow and fluidity. So spirals and circular motions are really what we want to think about here. So one example of a really good exercise to help bring the water element in is called Sufi grind, though some people will call it stir the pot. And so very simple. So you're just seated, and you could be seated in a chair or on the floor or a cushion like I am. And I just put my hands on the knees, and then you just begin to kind of make these circles here with your hips. Not a lot of movement. I even felt my back just crack there. So sometimes you'll get a nice crack in the back. And so you just want to close your eyes as you're doing this and really feel the flow. And what you'll notice sometimes is we sit a lot, right, in our jobs, in our cars, just in our day-to-day modern life. And so we get a lot of tension here, kind of in the midsection of the body. And we don't do a lot of movement like side to side like this. And so when you do a movement like Sufi grind, what you may notice is it opens up areas in the side body that you had not worked with before. You didn't notice were that tight. And so one thing I do recommend is when people try this exercise is think about a bowl of like cake batter or something. And you want to scrape all the edges of the bowl to try to get all the batter out, right? Like if you're licking the spoon. And so it's kind of the same idea with this. If what's going to happen is if you move through a tight area, your body may unconsciously just move quickly to get through it. But if you try to go really slow through those areas, you're going to open up energetic spaces in the midsection, which is going to do a lot for the flow of your energy. Now, this particular movement is also very good for raising energy. So if you can actually do this in spell work. So I like to kind of raise energy, and you can go clockwise if you're trying to draw in energy, or you can go counterclockwise if you're trying to release energy. And if you do that movement for a minute or so, you'll really feel that you've raised a good amount of energy, and then you can send it off wherever you want to go. But at the same time, it's also going to be clearing out negative energy or any stuck or stagnant energy in your own body. Now, the other thing I would recommend for movement when it comes to working with the water element is intuitive movement or dance, intuitive dance. And so this is simple, where you turn on some music. I would get music that's comforting to you, that you want to move to. Usually this music isn't super fast, because we don't want to, when we're trying to work with that water element's all about slowness, like going slow, going with the flow. So we don't want to be really active during this. And so I'd put on kind of soothing, sensual kind of music, and then close your eyes. Make sure you're in a place where you feel comfortable. So I'd go in like a bedroom. I've even told people go in the bathroom. If you're in a household where you can't ever get away, go in the bathroom and do this. And just close your eyes, and then just let your body begin to respond to the music. Let it move in whatever way it will. This is a great exercise. I first learned it when I was studying to become a doula. This is a great exercise for pregnant women too, but it's beneficial to everyone who's trying to bring in that water element. Okay, so that is, oh, let's see, we got a couple other things to talk about when it comes to movement and the water element. So another thing would be yin yoga. Yin yoga helps to connect us to the feminine side. So yin itself, yin versus yang. Yang energy is the masculine energy. It's more projective, it's fiery energy. It's great, but it's not the type of energy we want when we're trying to work with the water element. There we want yin energy. And so what yin yoga does is it brings the body into a yin-like state, and that can be achieved through holding poses for long periods of time. So these are usually like you're on the floor, perhaps you're seated, and you could be seated in a chair and do this as well, some of the poses. And you just hold them for 4 or 5 minutes at a time. And what it does is it relaxes the body enough that it begins to open up space in the body, and the stuck and stagnant energy starts to move. So that is a great way. It can help you release like a lot of energy and emotions trapped in the body, and then at the same time connecting you to the water element. All right, so that is our kind of our third idea, is using movement to connect to the water element. Now, the fourth idea is divination. Divination, of all the elements, I would say divination probably most connects to the water element, and many people would probably say the fire element as well, because of kind of the inspirational energy that comes through. So divination, this can include tarot, runes, pendulum, scrying, anything that you use for divination. And many people will tell you who are good at divination, they'll tell you that we really don't get good at it, and you don't get really good readings when you are anxious, when you are kind of clutching at things. So sometimes when people say like, I've been to multiple tarot readers and I keep getting different answers, and my advice would be to just stop. Just stop going to all these tarot readers. Just stop going to all these tarot readers, because your own energy is so kind of anxious, and it's really seeking an answer, and very oftentimes that can get in the way of getting a good reading, because we need to be in a relaxed and a receptive state for a reading to come through that is very good. And that can be coming through from another person or our own personal readings. So one thing that I think is especially connected to the water element is the pendulum. And so the pendulum can act as a receiver or a transmitter from multiple different places. So some people will say the higher self. Some people will say that your guides, your angels, ascended teachers of any kind. And so a pendulum can be as simple as a necklace. Most oftentimes we want a point on the end of it. this is actually designed to be a pendulum, but people will sometimes wear them, right? And they'll have some kind of a crystal with a point, and then they'll pull that out and use that as their pendulum. So if you have never used one before, you just simply need to start to understand its movements. It's going to be different for everybody. You want a pretty relaxed hand in order to hold it. I generally hold with my dominant hand, that would be the right hand. And as you begin to work with it, you want to find and confirm what the yes and the no patterns look like for you. And so, what you can do is you test out the yes and no questions in order to gain confidence in your ability to use the pendulum. So, you'll ask things like, what is my, yes and no question. So, is my name Aislin, right? Or insert your name there. And you'll notice what the pendulum does. And then you'll ask a few other questions that are true. Do I have a cat named Camazotz? And you watch what the pendulum does, and then begin to ask questions that are not true, that the answer is no, and then watch the movement there. And so you'll start to understand what the yes and the no pattern is for yourself. And then once you have gained confidence in your ability to work with the pendulum, you can start to ask more difficult questions, more deeper questions that, um, you know, might not be as simple as just, is my name Aislin, is my cat named Camazotz? And so you can get really elaborate with these. People will make pendulum boards that have letters or runes on them, and the pendulum can go to those letters and spell out words and names. That is definitely I would say, a more advanced technique. So if somebody's starting out, I wouldn't say go right onto a board. I would say just start to get used to feeling the pendulum. It's an extension. You want it to be an extension of your hand. You are a receiver, and the messages are coming through. But divination is a great way to work with the water element. Okay, so the next idea is to try automatic writing. Now, automatic writing is another very intuitive process, which is why it connects to the water element. Now, some say that the messages come from our unconscious. Other people say that they come from spirit guides, angels. Some people might say demons. Um, in my opinion, I think that automatic writing is a very good way for you to connect to your higher self or to your inner child, depending on how you use it. And the key here, like everything we're talking about today, it's the water element, so we need to be relaxed. So if we're kind of clutching for answers, if we have a lot of anxious energy or a lot of worry, it's usually better for us to get rid of some of that through different practices like meditation, breath work, kind of bring our energy down into the more relaxed and receptive state so that we are going to receive the best answers and we're going to be the best receiver that we can be. Now, you can do that through, like I said, light meditation, some light breath work, and then we want to get into some kind of a light trance state after you're relaxed. And so that Sufi grind I showed you, you could totally do that. Repetitive movements will help bring you into a light trance-like state. You can use music. Again, I wouldn't have it be activating or have it be very like we're trying to go down in our into the unconscious, not up and be activated. You can use mantras, you could use breath work, but we need something that's going to bring us into a light trance-like state. And then from there, you want to relax the hand. So it's just like with the pendulum, we want to relax the hand. And so what I notice usually when I'm doing automatic writing is that the more relaxed my hand is, the better. If there's a lot of tension in my arm or my hand, I'm not going to get as good of results. Now, you really need to just trust the process and let things flow through. And in the beginning, if you've never done this before, and those who have done this before know what I'm talking about. Those who've never done this before, just be prepared. The beginning, a lot of gibberish comes through, a lot of things that don't make much sense. And you could have pages of things that don't really make much sense. I'll sometimes have pages of like swirls and maybe different designs, and then here and there, words will come through. And you just want to let come through what's going to come through and then go back later and interpret it. And we really want to kind of disengage ourselves from the logical mind. We want to search for any patterns or pull out any key phrases that are there. It's not an easy process. So if you're looking for something that you can just kind of do and be really good at it right away, definitely not probably the activity for you. But if you have patience, which is what the water element asks us for anyway, then it can be a really eye-opening process for people. Now, the other thing that you can do is that you can work with it for the connecting to the inner child. And I recommend when we do that, that you actually write questions with your dominant hand that you want to ask the inner child, and then put the pen in your non-dominant hand and let it answer. And sometimes what it does is it'll draw, it'll be kind of chicken scratch or things like that, because it's the little kid in you coming through. But many people can be successful at connecting to the inner child that way. And the other thing I wanted to say is if you are trying in automatic writing, or you've tried it in the past and you're kind of stuck with it, it's not really working, try stream of consciousness writing first to get your kind of feet wet, do that for a while, and then transition into the automatic writing. So in stream of consciousness writing, you don't get into the relaxed state first. Your idea here is that you're not trying to channel anything through, you're just trying to get things out of the unconscious. And so you just start writing about anything. You can pick like a word if you need some kind of a prompt, like rainbow, and just literally start writing down associations about rainbow. Do that for 3 minutes. And people have found that type, not only is that good for kind of easing us into the work of automatic writing, but it can actually be very good for our creativity. People have found that if they kind of dump stuff out, they're more creative. There's more space for creativity. You have more space to channel in creative energy. Okay, so next idea is make moon water. Okay, so we can make moon water. A lot of people ask about this. So probably the most typical time that people make moon water is at the full moon. But people can also make moon water at the new moon, the dark moon, at any phase of the moon. It's very, very simple. You just take, would recommend a glass jar, so you can just bottle it up right there, but you could put it out in a bowl if you want. And you can place different things in the water. You could put crystals in there if you want the water to be infused with that as well. And then you want to find a place where the water can be left out underneath the moonlight. So like a window, you could do it on a windowsill if you're not able to put it outside. Other people put it outside. And then you would ideally like to collect the water, bring it back inside before the sun comes up. Otherwise, we're going to have that water also infused with solar energy. And in this case, we're trying to infuse it with lunar energy. So that is about the extent of how you make it. Now, what I would recommend is I would put it like this. Why I like using a mason jar, because then on the top of it, you can write the date that it was collected and the phase of the moon. And then what you can do is, if you are working with spells later and you need to do a spell, so let's suppose you wanted to do a drawing in spell, and let's say it's like the waning moon, for example. And so those energies aren't really totally aligned. The waning moon is more about letting go than about drawing in. But suppose we need to do we need to do that ritual or spell. So what we can do is we can then bring in some of our full moon water or waxing moon water, and then that will add some of that full moon or waxing moon energy into your spell work, even though you're in the waning half of the cycle. And so, and vice versa, let's say you need to do a releasing ritual and we're in the waxing gibbous, or for example, you can get some dark moon water or some new moon water or something like that you've set out at the dark moon or the new moon, and then you can add that to your spell work, and you'll be adding that energy, which will basically help to negate the fact that maybe we're not doing the spell at the most aligned time. But moon water can also be used. You can drink it. You can use it in if you make any like bath products or beauty products, lotions, different things like that. You can put it in that, and you can cook with it. You can anoint yourself with it. So there are a lot of other options besides just spell work. But moon water is a great way to connect with the water element. Okay, so the next idea here is working with deities connected to water. So some ideas, if you are somebody who works with deities, some ideas would be Poseidon, Neptune, Aphrodite, Venus, Caradwen with her cauldron she's stirring, Freya, Osiris, Lakshmi, and Yemaya. But these are only a few examples of deities connected to water. So if you're interested and maybe none of those kind of pique your interest, you can Google deities connected to the water element or connected to water. You'll find many in a multitude of pantheons. And you could pick one of those and work with them. And you can work with them by, so let's suppose you just want to connect to the water element. You can set up an altar, a water element altar. You could put some kind of an offering to that deity on it. You could tend to that over the course of a lunar cycle. So there's a lot of options, the same ways that we work with deities for anything else, we can work with them for the water element. Now, another idea for working with the water element is bringing herbs in. So watery herbs like that can be used as essential oils or as incense. So some good ones are aloe. Aloe is such a great one, right? Because it has that water inside of it to begin with. Lemon and lemon balm. Lemon balm is one of my personal favorites because it's very, very relaxing. So people who carry a lot of anxiety, so like we were talking about like pendulum and divination and things like that. And so if people are coming in with kind of some anxious energy, taking some lemon balm can be very good because it kind of brings you down into a more receptive and relaxed state. Yarrow, violet, hazel, willow, rose, and carnation. And these are all good herbs for the water element. It's not an exhaustive list though. So you can Google herbs for the water element and you'll find a long list. And so you can bring those in with incenses or essential oils, and that will help bring the water element in as well. And then I mentioned earlier about color. So color, we can work with the colors of blue and we can work with the color orange. And so those two seem kind of, that the orange might seem a little strange for the water element, but I'll explain why we could work with that. So, but first let's talk about blues. So blues and shades of blue, green, and silver, these are all the colors of the ocean, of water. They help us connect to that kind of energy. Now the color orange is associated with the sacral chakra. So this is then connected to the water element. And so the connection here is that the sacral chakra, which is located underneath the navel by about 3 or so inches, is when people have been able to kind of see through the veils, or they're able to kind of see auras or things like that, many people see the sacral chakra vibrate as the color orange. So bringing in that color can also be a way to work with the water element. So it kind of depends on which direction you want to kind of approach it. Do you want to approach it through the colors associated with water, right? And the color that we associate in our Western traditions, we always the water candle, the water quarter candle is blue, right? That's the association we have. So we can kind of work with that association, or we can work with the Eastern association of orange being connected to the water element. And so we can bring in candles of these colors. We can bring in stones, like if we're going to work with blue, lapis is very good for the water element. Aquamarine, rainbow moonstone, one of the best ones there is. Pearl, very good as well. And then I love, if working with the sacral chakra, I love working with carnelian. But then we can also dress in these colors. So just dress in blue or dress in orange, and that will help bring in more of that fluid and flowing energy of the water element as well. And then we have working with our emotions. So the water element is connected to our emotions. Our emotions are fluid and they don't define us. Like sometimes we think they do, right? Sometimes we think we are our emotions, especially if we carry a lot of heavy emotions and we've carried them for a while. We think that that's us. But we're not our emotions, right? We're just like we're not our thoughts. They're fluid and they're flowing just like the water element. Now, we are responsible for how we react to things, right? And we do have a great power and ability to choose the emotions that we feel much of the time. Sometimes it's out of our control. Sometimes things hit us from the side and we're not expecting it and we can't control them, but we do have much more power than we ever imagine. And so we can choose to transmute some of these emotions or not. We can choose to kind of wallow in them and be in them, or we can choose to free ourselves from them. Now, shadow work and other deep kind of intrapersonal work can be very good at helping us learn how to manage our emotions, how to change our emotions. We really have way more power than we ever thought that we do. So I, I'm very sensitive. I'm an empath. I'm somebody who can get hit by, hit on the on the side all the time by other people's emotions, or just reading about things in the news, or hearing from people I know about bad things that are happening to them, and I can get very swept away by those emotions. But I've also learned that I have a great amount of power in changing those and transmuting those. And so my shadow work has very much taught me this. And so if you are somebody who feels like you're kind of swept away by emotions a lot of the time, you want to look and see if you can explore ways to change them. So one thing I like to do is I just imagine drawing the emotions into my heart. So a lot of times what happens is bad emotions come and we clutch up, and we kind of, even if this is unconscious, we want to push them away. We don't want them near us. But if instead we take a deep breath and we just bring them into the heart chakra, imagine the heart like an ocean that is infinite, and it's like dropping like your emotion is like one little drop of water in this expanse of the ocean. It's gone in an instant. And the heart has that power, but we have to make the concerted effort to do that. And sometimes, I'll tell you, as somebody who's pretty emotional, sometimes it feels good to be carried away by our emotions, right? And so we just have to, though, look and see, is this benefiting us in this situation or not? And then we can choose to kind of take some of our power back from those emotions. And then finally, we can also work with our dreams. Our dreams are connected to the unconscious. They're connected to the water element through that. We can ask for answers in our dreams. We can work with herbs and tinctures that can help inspire dreams or bring dreams or help us remember dreams. So some good herbs, like for a dream sachet, if you wanted to make a dream sachet and then put it under your pillow, you could get a piece of cloth and put a few herbs in it. Like I like blue lotus. Mugwort is very good. And sometimes people take mugwort internally. You should use a little caution with it, but you can get mugwort kind of herbal sticks, or just take some of the dried herb and put it in the sachet. You can also use passion flower. That's a very good one. Throw in a pinch of rosemary to help you remember your dreams. And that can be a great way of working with your dreams. But you can also, ask for answers. Write a question down on a piece of paper and put it underneath your pillow, and then see what is the first thing on your mind when you wake up. Make sure you write that down too, because it may not seem connected to the question, but then later you discover actually it was giving you an answer. But that dreamlike state, or that kind of dreamy, wakey state when you're first waking up, you're going to forget a lot of things. So just make sure you write down when you're waking up, and you won't forget the answers to that. And then just see if they make sense later. So I actually have a lot of questions from the Q&A today, and so I'm going to segue into that and hope I can get through as many of these as I can, okay, before time's up. So if you are live, make sure to you can put questions and things in the chat. So what's kind of interesting here is that, so it's like showing, it still shows, see, now I can see all these questions that were here. Okay, let me just go into the chat. I missed all these because I couldn't see this for a while. So I'm gonna go through some of these comments and questions, and I have a ton that were sent to me, so I'll dive into those. If you're here live, you can put questions in the chat as well. So Rebecca said, I like to ask each pendulum I work with to show me it's yes and no. Yeah, so very good point. And the I don't know, she said too. So very good point, because not every pendulum will operate the same way for you. So that's good advice. And she says that not all swing the same way. Sonia said, for a very important date, and because I don't know, I'm not sure, because I couldn't see the chat at that time, I'm not sure what that reference is. So just elaborate on that, and I will answer that. Cindy said, I've come to love scrying. She said, as you know, I've seen symbols around the ceiling of my bedroom with a dark figure. Dark figure she honestly believes is her horned god she's been working with. And then she said she's always felt safe and never threatened. Rebecca said she loves scrying too. Yeah, so scrying is such a great way too to connect to the water element. Cindy said the pendulum was her first tool when working with spirits and shadow work. Kurt said, what method do you use for scrying? So a lot of people will use like a scrying mirror. I think it's one of the simplest things to do. So you can actually buy them places that people will sell black mirrors that are designed for scrying. Or you can actually get, like we got for the the members that we just initiated into our coven, we got these like little black scrying gazing balls. They're like made of black glass. And so people can use those. But if you want to make a black mirror at home, what you want to do is get a picture frame, and then you want to get like matte paint instead of glossy paint usually, and some kind of, you want it to be black. And then you're going to paint one side of the mirror, or I shouldn't say mirror, one side of the glass black, put it back in the mirror, and then you can use that for scrying. Um, Okay, and then okay, so let me go to these questions, and anybody who's here live can like put some in too. So I've got a lot, so I'm gonna try to get through as many as I can in 15 minutes. Okay, so this first question is actually from last week. This is from Laura, and she had put this question in after I had written down the questions for last week's episode, so we missed this one. So she said, "How do I create an altar?" So this is a very good question, and I know there's other people are wondering about it as well. So your altar can be simple or it can be complex. It's all dependent on what you want to do. The very simplest thing you can do is just take the top of a bookcase, and this works for people who don't have a lot of space, especially. But take the top of a bookcase. If you'd like, you can put like a scarf or something over it to serve as an altar cloth. And then you can put candles, stones, natural objects that you found, like acorns, feathers, different things like that. Symbols of your intentions, symbols of a god or goddess that you're working with, an offering to a god or a goddess that you're working with. But it literally can be that simple. I have like lots of altars around the house. So I mean, I have this one as a permanent altar, but I also have altars built on the top of bookcases and various places like that. So this one here is a permanent altar, which means that it doesn't move. Now, what I might do is change things on it depending on the season. Like I found a little glass bunny that I really love for spring equinox and Ostara that's coming up. So that's added there for right now, but I might change those things depending on the Sabbath that is the seasonal energy that's going around right now. So you might change the items to reflect that changing energy, but you're not going to move that altar. Now, then there are other altars that are meant to be temporary. So a person would throw one up when that, or build one when it was time to do a ritual, or perhaps they would build one just to experience kind of the few days around a Sabbath or something like that. And so I will build a temporary altar every time that we have a coven ritual or we have a shadow seekers ritual. I will build an altar for us. When it's Samhain, we'll build an altar outside for the ancestors. And so those are the temporary altars. They're meant to come down after the working. But if you want to know how to create an altar, especially if you're kind of newer to this, I would recommend just get something very simple, and like the bookcase idea, try that. Or the little table that's back here, that's a lac table from IKEA. It was $5 when I bought it, probably 20 years ago, but I can't imagine it's much more now. Throw a scarf over it. That's a scarf from H&M that has astrological symbols on it, and that is the start of an altar right there. And you can do that for like 10 bucks. So I hope that helps. Building altars is a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy building your first one. Okay, next question is from Debbie. So Debbie said, how do I get back? She said, I've felt devoid of it. And I think she means like her connection to everything for a while, and it scares me that I've lost it. She said, the power, the admiration, the desire. Okay, so first of all, what I have, my advice to Debbie and anybody else feeling this way is don't worry, you have not lost it. It is not something that, it's not like, that saying with your muscles, if you lose it, you don't use it, you'll lose it. It's not like that. And your muscles aren't like that either. You can build your muscles back, but you'd have to use them. So same way with this. If we want to connect, we need to make an effort to connect. And so I get asked this question a lot about, like, I'm feeling disconnected and I don't know how to get back. In fact, there's somebody later in the Q&A is asking a similar question, a little bit different, but it kind of has a similar idea to it. Like, how do I get back? How do I connect? And so the best advice is when you are having trouble connecting, that's when you need to connect the most. You need to try to connect the most. You may need to put some effort into it. And it is more common than people will let on. A lot of people experience this from time to time, and sometimes for longer than time to time. So over time, just the world in general makes us feel disconnected a lot of the time. It can make us doubt ourselves, our abilities, the things we believe in. And it's like any relationship too, is when you're first in a relationship, everything's new and it's fresh. It's like a new beginning. It's exciting. Just think back, those of you who've been on the path for a while, think back to what it felt like when you first found paganism or witchcraft, right? How exciting it all was. And sometimes hopefully you still have that excitement, but over time we kind of lose a little bit of it. And so relationships, just like relationships that kind of lose a little of that spark, if we don't change something, the same thing happens in our own practice. So my best advice is to set up a daily practice if you don't already have one. And I would guess that somebody who's feeling like I'm feeling kind of devoid and kind of away from it probably isn't doing a daily practice. So set up a daily practice. And this could be as simple as literally drawing a card every day, lighting a candle every day, saying a little prayer or a little offering to a deity, or doing a little breath work or doing a little meditation. We need to do something every day or almost every day in order to establish the regularity of the practice. And and then what I would recommend is if you're already somebody who is doing something, because there are people who are like, I'm doing something every day, but it feels like I'm going through the motions. I hear that from people too. And so for those people, I would say then try something different. If there's something you hear in like one of my videos that you've never tried before, try it. See what it feels like. It can be enough of a kind of like a jump start to get you back to feeling like you're connected again. But don't worry, you have not lost it. These things will come back when you kind of set up a daily practice or you jump start it by using something different, trying something different. Okay. Next question I have is three different people kind of ask this. So, and this question, I actually answered this question last week, so I'm going to go through quickly to save time, and then I'm going to refer you guys to last week's video because I answered a lot about this one. So Dana and Jessica said, how do I approach shadow work and making time for it? And then Elizabeth had kind of a similar question. She said, and what's a good way to begin? Okay, so you do not need a lot of time in order to do shadow work. You just need to make time for it. That's all. So usually it won't come naturally to most people. It's not like, oh, I'm going to decide to do shadow work and now I'm doing it. It's like most people are going to have to put in some effort. And so what I recommend people do is make that concerted effort. So once a week or a couple times a month, set aside some time where you will do something related to your shadow work. And especially in the beginning, the best approach is to explore your triggers. Your triggers are going to show you what's inside of you. So rather than it being about an external thing, it's definitely still about an external thing, but we turn the mirror back on us and ask what we can learn from our own reaction to that thing. We can use shadow work prompts. You can find many of those online, or we can explore those places where we say, I don't know why I do this. I don't know why I act that way. So those patterns in our lives that we seem to they seem to automatically happen and we can't figure out why. So explore those things every week, make an effort to do it, or every couple of weeks or once a month. And then I also recommend setting aside some time every month to do releasing. And I recommend doing that around the dark moon. So kind of letting go some of the energy of what's coming up. A lot can come up when we're going through this work, and we're going to need to get some of that energy out. And so a releasing ritual can be really good for that. So check out last week's episode. I'm going to drop a link for that below as well. So that episode was on common questions about shadow work. And so I go into a longer explanation of like how a person could get started and set the time aside to do it. And that should help you in addition to what I said on this video. All right, so next question is, Angela said, what is energy work? So it really depends on who you're asking, who you're talking to, because it can mean some different things. So it could be chakra work, it could be Reiki or other kinds of healing work, it can be manipulation of energy, it can be breath work, acupuncture, acupressure. Those are also ways to work with energy. It can be a combination of any of the above. So, at the very heart of energy work, it's about moving energy through the subtle bodies. And most of the time, we can't see the energy, but some of us can feel it. And we can learn to feel it more as we do more work with it. The chakra system seems to be a pretty accessible system for many people. So, even though it comes from the East, many people in the West find it to be a very accessible system. Learning how to pay attention to the energy in our own bodies, how it moves, where it gets stuck, looking at how it affects our mood, our thoughts, and our physical bodies can be very valuable in understanding energy. And then from there, we can then do more. We might reach out and start learning Reiki or acupressure or things like that, or doing breath work. But I would typically tell people start with the chakra system. So even people who study Reiki oftentimes will work with the chakra system as well. But that's essentially what is energy work. It's moving the subtle energy in the body. And you can move it inside your own body, from your body, out to another person, out to another object, or you can bring energy from another object or person into your own body. Okay, that is my answer to that one. In the chat, I see that Adam had said, "What's a good candle ritual for letting go?" Yeah, so my favorite ritual for that is I usually would do this at the dark moon, but it could be done at any time. And you just get a candle and light the candle. And then what you can do too is you can actually, before you light it, you can write into it. You can carve into it your intention, like the thing you want to let go of. And then as the candle is melting, it kind of melts away that intention that you're letting go. But I also then like to bring in a piece of paper and I write down the things that I'm going to release during that cycle. And sometimes it's the same things as last month, and they sometimes need extra energy to let go of them. And then what I like to do is then once I've written all of that down, all the things I'm kind of going to purge out of my body, out of my energy field, I would then light that piece of paper and burn it with the candle. And then oftentimes I'll just let the candle burn down. But that can be very powerful, very simple. And sometimes people are like, it seems too simple to work, but a very, very effective ritual. Okay. Next question is so I don't actually, I'm not sure who asked this question because I didn't write down the person's name, but they said, where do I find reliable information about crystals? There are so many different meanings, and how do I know what's accurate or not? Okay, so I agree. A lot of information out there, and some of it seems to contradict itself. I would recommend visiting shops that specialize in crystals because they tend to have someone who works there who's an expert on crystals or can at least guide you and aid you in what they understand about the crystals. Also, perhaps getting a good book from a reliable source. So I love this book is Crystal, Gem, and Metal Magic by Scott Cunningham. This book's about 25 years old at this point. A very good resource. It goes through all of your common crystals. It may not have every single crystal out there, but it has a lot of them. He goes through correspondences for each one and then how to use it magically. And then at the end of the book, he also has like lists. So if you had like let's see, does he have it in this book? Yeah. So if you had an intention, so like I just opened this page, it says protection, and then it just lists all the crystals for protection. And then what you can do is you find one on the list, and then you can go into the book and learn more about it. And he also has some, I think he has some pictures in the middle too that show the different crystals in color. So I would recommend that book because it's been around for a long time. He's a very good author, has a good reputation. What I would just take with a grain of salt are the things you read on the internet. I guess if you Google like onyx crystal or something like that, there's going to be all these websites that come up, and yeah, it's hard to tell what's reliable and what's not. But at the end of the day, use your intuition and, what crystals are you most drawn to? What do you think they're for? If you read, you're drawn to a crystal and you read its meaning and you're like, that doesn't even seem like the right thing, use your intuition. But I would go to find a place or like a gemstone convention. Those will come through places. Those people, there's a lot of vendors there, and many of them are very good and knowledgeable about crystals. So I hope that helps. Tammy said, my fear is on certain things from my childhood I still want, protection for those who cause so much pain. She said they have hurt themselves now and what they have done. Um, and though I still have anger, I think they've hurt themselves now for what they have done, or they feel hurt because of what they did. But she said, I still have anger, but I'd rather go through my trauma again than having them have to. Okay, so I have some thoughts. This is a complicated, I think it's a complicated question. So my advice at the end is going to be to do some shadow work or some therapy around this for sure. But it can be very common in especially sensitive people. They don't want to hurt anyone, even if that means even if it means that someone who hurt them, or it means that they'll be hurt instead. Many people will put others before them, right? So what we need to do, this is a big take-home message here, is you got to remember that it is not your job. You were not put on earth to manage other people's karma and other people's actions or issues. You were put on earth to manage your own. And so when you're taking on other people's, like, so they have pain because they hurt you, you're taking on other people's issues to deal with. And not only is that damaging to you, but it actually, in some ways, you might think you're doing good, like you're being good by doing that, but it can actually harm their growth if they have other people like carrying their karma for them, or carrying their issues, or managing the burden of their issues, right? They're the ones who have to work through it. And so they're not going to evolve if we're trying to manage all of that, right? And then we're not going to evolve because we, for whatever reason, are putting ourselves last behind everybody else. So what you really want to consider about this is, why are you less deserving of peace than other people? Like, why would you go through the trauma again and carry everybody else's pain so that they don't have to? It doesn't matter whether these are people who hurt you or didn't hurt you. Carrying anybody's pain isn't our, it's not our place. It's not our job in this incarnation. Okay. So you really want to consider, like, why are you less deserving? Because it probably goes back to that. So that is a question to contemplate in shadow work, a question to contemplate with a therapist. But when you find yourself falling into that space where you're like, I would rather take on the pain than have them have it, really think to yourself, this is not, it's not going to be helpful for them usually, because it can get in the way of other people's karma and other people's work. Okay, so I hope that helped. So let's see here. Next question. Kurt had said, I need to learn about astrology. He said, I'm a beginner. Okay, so Kurt just joined our Demystifying Witchcraft course, and there is a video in there. It's like 2.5 hours long, I believe, and it's all about astrology for beginners. So if you haven't gone through that, I would start going through that. But the biggest thing, this would be my biggest advice to a person who's a beginner, is do not get overwhelmed by your chart and all the connections to it. Like, people who don't really understand what the rising sign is and the moon sign and how it really operates in their life, they shouldn't be looking at Uranus conjunct Neptune, things like that. It's too complicated. So it's like anything with witchcraft, like we need to start with the basics, right, and then build from there. Otherwise, astrology can get very overwhelming very quickly. So spend some time really starting to understand your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, and the interplay between them. And then from there, once you master that, then you can dive into the aspects and different things like that. But that course, or that class in the Demystifying Witchcraft course, will probably help you a lot. And then Kurt had also said, do you have any experience contacting the dead? I do not. It's not something I really have any experience doing at all. Though I connect with spirits, I don't know that I'm necessarily would call that connecting with the dead, or contacting the dead. But I would recommend, there is a book called The Book of Spirit Communication by Raymond Buckland. It's considered his big red book. He has a big blue book, which is his book on witchcraft, and then he has the big red book, which is his book on spirit communication. And it's a very good book to check out. He's kind of a classic author, a good one to just add to your witchcraft collection if you don't already have that book. Okay. Brianna said, I'm trying to make a book of shadows for myself, but I'm having a hard time doing it. Okay. So the first thing you want to think about, online and digital versus paper. Some people really like the paper idea, but people also you can make these in Google Docs if you want. But how to really make it, a traditional book of shadows is usually just divided into a few sections like in rituals, spells, herbs, stones, sabbats, deities, other correspondences. And so when I made my first one, what I did is I just got a big black bound journal from like Barnes and Nobles. And I went through and I separated it into like 7 or 8 sections, and I kind of put like a table of contents. So the beginning would be like intentions, spells, stones, and I just left the pages blank to fill them in later. And so what you can do, like a good way to start, is just as you're studying, like let's say you start to study a certain stone. So like let's say somebody gets really interested in a stone for protection, and they start to study about onyx and obsidian. You can start to write some of your notes in that section of the Book of Shadows. And then let's say you do a spell. So I would have a section for where I record my spells, and you can record what you did for the spell, like why you did it, record when you did it, any astrological connections that you're aware of at the time you did it, as well as the outcome. And so then you can actually track and trace your spell work, whether it's working, whether it's not working, whether it's perhaps you see the results 6 months later. This starts to give us a lot of great information. But any of these, just kind of what I would say my best advice is just kind of divide the book up and then start filling it in with notes that you're taking as you study. And then you can also include a moon journal section where I recommend anybody who's never tracked the moon to try this for a couple months. Is you just write down every day, write down the phase of the moon, and then how you feel emotionally, how you feel physically, and how you feel energetically. And you're just going to begin to track your own body's cycle and how it connects to the lunar cycles. So that's also a great thing to put in the Book of Shadows. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, let me see here. Melinda said, how would I know if I'm around an energy vampire? She said, how would I protect myself from one? And also, what is your interpretation of an energy vampire? Okay, so my definition of a energy vampire is someone who either consciously or unconsciously feeds off of the energy of someone else. So consciously, I have actually met two people when my friend Beth and I first moved to Los Angeles. We were looking for witchy friends. We'd left all of our witchy friends behind in Boston. And so we would go to these meetups, and we went to this witches meetup at a restaurant. And there were these two people running it, and they basically came out and they said, we're energy vampires. And we didn't go back. We didn't go back to that meetup, but it was fascinating to hear what they would talk about, how they would go into places and they would like essentially feed off of people's energy. And then the other really interesting thing about them, it came back to me when I was thinking about this, is I don't believe that, I know at least one of them didn't work. And what she did is she would go to, because we live in Hollywood, she would go to like all the shows that are filmed around here and how they give like prizes and things, and she would go to all of those. You just get free stuff places. So she was always kind of feeding off of an energy, whether it was like material energy or physical or I should say energetic, subtle energy. But those people are like, there are people who are like very much aware. That's what I do. I go in and I feed off of people's energy. So those are people who just turn around and walk away and don't go back. But unconsciously, it gets a little bit more tricky. Those are people who don't know that they're doing it. Now, you will know they're doing it by a couple of key reasons or ways. So you'll feel very drained after you're around them. You may feel more emotional than usual. You may have no explanation for your emotions and moods. It's just like I was doing fine, and then I was here, and all of a sudden I'm not doing fine. You may feel heaviness in your body and in your energetic field. And so those would all be indications that perhaps you were around somebody who was feeding unconsciously off of your energy. So the best way to protect yourself can be through crystals like carrying onyx, obsidian, things like that are very good at deflecting negative energy, but also working to cut energetic ties, especially if you come home and you know that you're drained from perhaps being around somebody. Then just imagine cutting off any energetic cords that have attached to you and sending those just kind of back with no harm, with harm to none, but just sending those back to wherever they came from. But those are, you can also, people can also kind of put up like a energetic barrier around them too, especially if you know there's somebody that you have to be around. You know they're kind of an energy vampire in some ways and they don't know it, but you can just kind of put up an energy force field around yourself and just set the intention that nothing's going to come through it unless I allow it to. Okay, we have a lot of power in our intentions. Okay, so I am going to, that is the last question that I had. I may have missed a few because there are a lot this week. And if I missed anybody's questions, I'll go back and answer those later. If you are with us live and I've missed anything, you can put some more questions in the chat. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know what's coming up too. So next week on 320, I'm going to do an episode on Ostara and spring equinox. So we'll be like right at the spring equinox right then. So we'll do an episode on ways to celebrate the spring equinox. And then on that following Saturday, 323, is our Covenant Midnight Flame spring equinox full moon ritual. So for those who are in Covenant Midnight's Flame or Shadow Seekers, you guys have free tickets to that. And for anybody else who would like to purchase a ticket, sometime near the end of this week, we will have a place where you can get one, okay, through a donation of any amount. You can come to that ritual. It's going to be a really fun chakra balancing ritual. We're going to make rainbow chakra spell jars. We're going to honor the goddess of rainbows, Iris. And just going to be a really fun and lighthearted and great ritual for the spring and the full moon. And then on 327, I think there's going to be no episode. My birthday is the day before. I'm planning to do a show. It should I'm going to have a Zoom link if people want to come to my birthday party show. And I'm going to play music from the various bands I've been in and some of my solo music. So I'd love to have you guys come. But I think there's going to be no episode on 327. I'm going to take the week off. And I encourage people to do that when you get put, we have a lot of demands in our lives. So, take time off when you need to. So I think that's what I'm going to do on 327. But then on 4/3, I'll be back with an episode on the moon sign of your birthday. And that's going to be a really super fun episode. All right, so let me see here. I see another question here. Sonia had said, I know you mentioned there may be a dream episode soon. Yes, correct. She said, I've been wondering if you want to intentionally practice receiving messages from dreams. How do you go about opening energy to that? So what I would do is it's really about setting your intention. So on a piece of paper, you can write down your questions or intentions that you have. And then what you do is you just have to be patient. It's kind of like with scrying or automatic writing. It doesn't always come like immediately. So you just go to bed with the intention under your pillow or in your mind. You can, as a mantra, you can repeat it to yourself. And then when you wake up, write down the first thing that comes to your mind. And then go and do it the next night and the next night. And then over time, more comes through. But Sonia, you are in Shadow Seekers. So you should check out, there's a workshop on dream working for witches. And it's from June of last year. You should check that out. I think you'll learn a lot about like setting, there's a lot in there about setting intentions for your dreams. But we will be doing a new episode soon too, and I'll talk more about that. But really, it's just, it seems so simple, but you just set the intention. This is what I'd like. I'd like this question answered, and then be patient, and then open and receptive, and let it come through. Also, you can use the stone prehnite, Prehnite, and that's called the Dreamer's Stone, and it can be very helpful in opening people up to messages that are coming through their dreams. Okay, guys, I am going to let you go for the night, but I hope you have a great evening, and I will see you next time. All right, until then, blessed.